Hello, welcome to this little video with some memories from the very first VE day, and we're going to start it with a poem which has been written for us by Dee.
I'm a war baby. I'm a war baby. 1943. Hello, Mummy and Daddy. It's me. Joyous tears, being the first girl in the family for 50 years. Then in 1945, the world came alive. Churchill, country and king meant everything. The guns stopped. No bombs dropped. Lives lost for me. The wonderful letter V for victory set all the world free. Dancing thereafter, joy and laughter. There'll be no pain, and we'll all gather lilacs in the spring again.
Thank you, War Baby. That was brilliant. The next person who sent me some memories to share was Bill Mason, and he says this. He says, well, memories fade. They do, don't they? There was elation automatically and street parties with bunting and flags, etc. in many town streets. But the food dished up was extremely Spartan, confined to spam. I met somebody the other day who loves spam. Lettuce or jam sandwiches, etc. And if lucky, an odd plain biscuit or scone. There was only one bread, grey bread, so called. It was light grey in colour, being necessarily made with less refined flour. It was neither white nor brown. Compared with the massive choice now, I have a feeling it may not have been rationed at the end of the war, but seem to remember that it was soon after and for many years. People used to joke that it was enhanced with sawdust. Sounds delicious, Bill. There was no such thing as a list of ingredients on the packet, as there was no packet anyway. Dripping or jam on toast was not an uncommon semi-treat. The bread filled us up, I suppose. All the recent run on toilet paper amuses me. I only recall newspaper cut up in squares. Paper was short, and even newspapers were normally no more than a single sheet. At the same time, those who followed the progress and details of the war out east, or had relatives or friends out there, whilst relieved about VE Day, felt it was somewhat premature in view of the continuing heavy fighting and losses the other side of the world. I can imagine that. Bill says he can recollect more about incidents through the war and its progress than where he was or what actually happened on VE Day itself. Probably because he was too busy studying for his school certificate at the time, or it was possibly the actual exam time. Everybody's elation at the time seemed to evaporate when reality struck. Everyone assumed that things would get back to normal, but they were soon disillusioned. Austerity, rationing actually intensified, and taxes on cigarettes, petrol, etc. all went up in price substantially. Gosh, you never think about that, do you? I always thought that once VE Day was announced, that was it. But no, Bill says no, things actually carried on for a long time. That must have been quite hard. Okay, we're going to hear now from a close neighbour of Sue's. Here he is.
Well, I was in Portsmouth with a friend who lived in Portsmouth, and he had invited me home to lunch, and afterwards to play the bells in Portsmouth Cathedral. Not that I could play them, but so we went home to his place and had lunch, and later we moved to the cathedral, which wasn't a Gothic cathedral, and I suspect it was the first time that they were allowed to play the bells since war began. he had warned me that they would be playing a change of bells, which was something over 3 hours. And not being a campanologist, I might be somewhat disinterested. So after an hour or so, I excused myself and slipped off into Portsmouth. And in Portsmouth, it had gone wild. They were quite ecstatic. They were singing in the streets and dancing. There was music and drinking, of course. And as I made my way through the crowd back to Gosport, I never felt so homesick in my life. And that's it.
Amazing. That was Sue's 93-year-old neighbour Ben, and here's a picture of Ben on VE Day. Handsome boy. Rita is somebody else who shared a few memories, although she says that she can't really remember anything terribly special about VE Day itself. She says she would have been 16, can you believe that? Between O and A levels at school in Lydney in Gloucestershire. She said by then her whole family had moved there from Birmingham, where their house had been bombed in 1941. I've seen some pictures of the devastation of the middle of Birmingham during the Blitz. It looks terrible. Rita says her school was evacuated later, and then her family came to live near Lydney. She remembers their mum thinking the end of the war would mean we'd go back immediately. Oh gosh, but happily, of course, we didn't, and in any case the war wasn't over. Yeah, I guess again that's somebody else, isn't it, saying that once VE Day had happened, i.e. the end of the war in Europe, that everything would go back to normal. But people are saying that things like austerity and stuff like that actually got a little bit worse, or they certainly went on for a lot longer than they were expecting anyway. Les Evans from Dunstan has shared a few memories via Christine. Christine had a chat with him, and Les remembers a few things. He says he can remember waving the Union Jack out of his bedroom window at Diamond Cottage, which is where he was born on Dunstan Heath. And Les says, my brothers were singing, the war is over. And his parents were telling him that when the Germans bombed Coventry, and that was the only time they'd got us up out of bed, it's left them in bed all the way through everything else. Amazing. And Les can remember, he says, I remember the Dunstan WI ladies giving all the children in the parish a Christmas party in the village hall, and farmer Mr. Frank White of Hay House Farm was Father Christmas. That was in 1944, so that's a little bit before VE Day. Christine says, what an amazing memory he's got, and he was only 5 or 6 years of age. Incredible. Thank you, Les, for sharing those memories. And somebody else is going to share just a couple of memories that she's got from VE Day as well. So here's Isabel.
We had a lovely time. There was a party on our street, and Mother provided all the, because we kept hens, we provided all the eggs for the egg sandwiches. It made us very popular. So, yes, I remember that because I was just ready to go to grammar school, because I went there a year earlier. And it was all good fun.
Thanks, Isabel. I love that story about the egg butties. You'd be really popular if you had chickens, wouldn't you? Okay, Mary has shared some memories that she's got as well from VE Day, and they're really vivid, these actually. So thank you, Mary, so much. She says this, she says, I was working as a physiotherapist at St Luke's Hospital in Bradford with the wounded soldiers when someone rushed in shouting that the war was over. I didn't take much notice until typical Mary, until I realised there was a lot of noise outside and we were all aware what was happening. You can imagine how the soldiers felt. That's the soldiers that they were looking after, those who'd been wounded during the war. And Mary says that night Bradford erupted. There was music, singing, dancing, and every possible light in shops, houses was lit up, as well as the church bells ringing out. Because because I didn't live through the war, so I never thought about the blackout and everything. It must have been amazing to be able to open your windows with the light on and not be worried. That must have been incredible. So all the lights were lit and the church bells rang, and she says the beer flowed and the pubs stayed open. And all I remember is dancing around the streets, doing the conga with a lot of normally quiet Yorkshire men. Can you imagine? But Mary finishes rather poignantly by saying, the next day I was thinking of my brother who was killed in a Lancaster bomber, and my cousin who we knew was working on the Japanese railway. But we were grateful for the European war ending. And even as we celebrate VE Day, it is worth remembering that people were still fighting, you know, all the way up to VJ Day, weren't they? And of course the terrible losses that families faced, and yet we're still able to celebrate in the way they did. It must have been amazing. I've been looking at some footage of Winston Churchill making a number of amazing speeches, thanking everyone. This is your victory, he says. This is your victory. And I can't help thinking that as we face this minuscule enemy of coronavirus, that, you know, we're not experiencing the same thing that people did in wartime, but we are experiencing something of that privation, and people are making huge sacrifices. And you know, I'm sure that when the day comes when we're all able to get back together again, my goodness, I bet there'll be a bit of beer and a bit of dancing and a lot of celebration. But meanwhile, that generation of people who fought in that war, or who kept the home fires burning, or who were just children but who didn't complain and just did what they had to do and went without, we salute you and we thank you. We thank you because you are an amazing generation, and it is your sacrifice that's bought our freedom. And we thank you so much, and we celebrate with you on this day. And to finish us off, I asked Isabel to play one more song for us, and I hope that you'll want to sing along as she plays We'll Meet Again. Thanks, Isabel. I really enjoyed that. I had a right good sing-song there. Thank you so much. And a huge thank you to everybody who contributed to this little film of memories, and to those who made it possible as well. Thank you so much, and may God bless and keep you on this 75th anniversary of VE Day and every day. Bye for now.